My boyfriend said I was selfish for not letting him stay with another woman. He called it helping out a friend and that I didn't trust him enough. And to prove his innocence, he even took topless pictures of himself in the other woman's bed. Hello everyone. Before we get started today, I have a small favor to ask. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video on our channel. Your support means a lot to us. Where are you watching from? Leave your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. 3 days after that photo, my phone buzzed again. Dinner tonight? We need to talk. John Miller. The message glowed on my screen, ordinary and cruel at the same time. My stomach turned. This was the same man who had just spent the night at another woman's apartment, and had the nerve to call it honesty. I stared at his name, my thumb hovering over the screen, the same way someone might stare at a fire they accidentally started. For a few seconds, the world felt too quiet. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. My own breath sounded foreign in my ears. Humiliation burned through my chest, hot and steady. Beneath it, something colder began to form, a strange, detached calm. I wondered what he wanted to say this time. Another speech about trust? Another lecture about maturity? Maybe he'd call this dinner a chance to communicate like adults. I set the phone down on the coffee table. The apartment felt heavy, like the air had thickened around me. I glanced at the framed photo of us on the bookshelf, John smiling, arm around me, both of us pretending not to see the cracks. He'd always had a talent for twisting words until wrong sounded righteous. Helping a friend, being transparent, acting from kindness. Every excuse dressed like virtue. And every time I tried to point out how absurd it was, he'd look at me with that disappointed calm that made me feel small. Maybe that was his favorite trick, making me believe logic was on his side. Now he wanted dinner. I could already imagine his tone, soft, reasonable, condescending. He'd tell me I was overreacting, that the picture didn't mean anything, that only someone insecure would read into it. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat but swallowed it. Instead, I took a long breath, stared out the window at the city lights flickering in the distance, and whispered to no one in particular. My boyfriend slept in another woman's bed, and called it helping a friend. So if he wanted honesty, I'd give him honesty in return. That was the moment I decided to tell the whole story, not for him, not even for revenge. Just to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, because maybe, in the end, the only way to stay sane was to let the truth speak louder than his excuses. 3 weeks earlier, John had brought up Anna Brooks over breakfast like he was mentioning the weather. She's an old friend from college, he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. Apparently, her roommate just moved out. She's having a hard time keeping up with rent. I looked up from my plate. That's unfortunate, I said carefully. He nodded, eyes still on his phone. Yeah, I might move in for a few weeks, just to help her out. I froze, the words catching somewhere between confusion and disbelief. Move in? John looked at me, calm as ever. Yeah. She's struggling, and you know me, I can't stand watching someone go through that alone. For a moment, I thought he was joking. The way he said it was too casual, too smooth. But when I saw the steady expression on his face, I felt my stomach twist. You're serious? He sighed, leaning back. Why are you making this weird, Mia? It's not a big deal. I'm just helping a friend. Something about the way he said friend made my skin prickle. I tried to keep my voice even. John, you're in a relationship. You can't just decide to move in with another woman. He laughed softly, like I was the one being ridiculous. Wow, Mia. I didn't know you were that insecure. I thought we were more mature than this. The conversation stretched into hours, looping arguments, circular reasoning, and that familiar tone he used when he wanted to sound morally superior. If you trust me, this shouldn't bother you. Helping a friend isn't cheating. You can't control who I live with. Each line came out smoother than the last, polished and practiced, as if he'd already rehearsed them in his head. I tried to stay calm. I told him it wasn't about trust, it was about boundaries. About respect. About basic decency. But the more I spoke, the smaller my voice felt. John had a way of making me question myself without ever raising his tone. Every counterargument was a mirror turned against me. By the end of the night, I was exhausted, not angry, just drained. He kissed my forehead before leaving and said, "You'll see I'm right someday." When the door closed behind him, the apartment fell into a silence that buzzed in my ears. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty coffee cups on the table, realizing the quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was the sound of something cracking, small, almost invisible, but real. And I knew that once a crack appeared, it never really went away. It only took a few days for John to prove that boundaries meant nothing to him. That Friday night, he texted me that he'd be staying over at Anna's place because she needed help carrying some furniture. I didn't reply. There wasn't anything left to say. The next morning, I woke up to a notification that nearly made me drop my phone. It was a photo, a topless selfie of John, taken in a bed that wasn't ours. The caption read, "Some people trust. Some people don't." For a full minute, I just stared. My brain refused to connect the dots, as if denial could rewrite what I saw. My throat felt tight, my palms damp. When I finally found my voice, I called him. He answered on the second ring, sounding infuriatingly calm. "Relax, Mia. I didn't want you to hear about this from someone else. I'm just being transparent." Transparent. The word hit me like a slap. Since when did transparency mean sending a naked picture from another woman's bed? I tried to breathe, but it came out shaky. Do you even hear yourself, John? Do you realize what you're doing? Looks, he cut me off. I'm not hiding anything. I'm being honest. You're the one twisting this into something ugly. Honest. Right? That I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. My heart was racing, and yet, everything around me felt muted, the ceiling fan's steady whir, the faint sound of someone mowing a lawn outside. It was the stillness that comes before realization. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't from John. It was Anna. Her message was short. You should learn to be stronger if you want to keep him. The words carved through me, sharp, deliberate, cruel. It wasn't jealousy anymore. It was humiliation, branded clean across my chest. I read the message again, wondering what kind of woman could say that and still sleep at night. Then again, maybe she slept just fine, in her freshly shared bed. When I confronted John later that evening, he didn't even flinch. Anna's been through a lot, he said. Don't take her words personally. He said it like a teacher scolding a child for overreacting. That tone, calm, detached, superior, was worse than shouting. I realized then that this wasn't confusion or misunderstanding. This was deliberate. He wanted to see how far he could push me. How much humiliation I'd swallow before I broke, and at that moment, I understood, this wasn't a test of love anymore. It was a test of obedience. 3 days after that photo, John texted me again. Dinner tonight? I think we need to talk. Apparently, even humiliation needed to be discussed over steak. We met at a restaurant by the river, the kind with low music, warm lights, and linen napkins folded like they mattered. He looked perfectly composed, as if nothing about the last few days had been abnormal. I sat across from him, fingers tracing the rim of my glass, waiting to hear what performance he had prepared this time. John started with a sigh. You've become so negative lately, Mia. You really need to work on your emotional maturity. I blinked at him, too stunned to speak. He wasn't joking. He said it like a therapist delivering a diagnosis. He went on, voice calm, perfectly measured. I just think you're letting your emotions control you. That's not healthy, for either of us. I sat still, hands in my lap, letting his words pile up. Each one felt rehearsed, a monologue he'd practiced in the mirror. Then, between bites of steak, he dropped the next line. I'm going to move in with Anna full time. She needs stability right now, and it's the right thing to do. The knife slipped slightly in my hand, clinking against the plate. Full time? I asked, keeping my tone level. He nodded, with that maddening air of righteousness. It's not forever. I just want to help her get back on her feet. There's nothing wrong with being kind. I swallowed hard. Can I visit? That was when he finally looked up, meeting my eyes for the first time all evening. That might make Anna uncomfortable, he said. I want to respect her space. The words hit colder than I expected. Respect her space, while erasing mine entirely. For a second, all I could do was stare. The man sitting across from me, once someone I thought I knew, was now talking about respect while building a moral podium under his betrayal. In that golden restaurant light, John didn't look like a liar or a cheater. He looked like a preacher, calm, confident, certain that his version of goodness made him untouchable. Something inside me clicked. It wasn't rage, not yet, just clarity. He didn't want love. He wanted control. And the only way to keep it was to convince me I was the problem. So I smiled. Just enough to confuse him, of course, I said softly. Do what you think is right. He seemed relieved, mistaking my calm for surrender. But that night, when I went home, I sat in the dark and began to think, really think. Not about how to forgive him, but about how to end the game he didn't realize he'd already lost. For the next few days, I pretended nothing had changed. I texted John sweetly, asked if he'd finished packing yet, sprinkled a few smiley faces between sentences. He responded like a man who just won an argument he didn't deserve to win, warm, self-assured, and so proud of his moral victory that he thought I'd accepted it. That I was the kind of woman who'd eventually come around once he'd explained things rationally. That was his first mistake. While John was busy moving his things into Anna's apartment, I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a year, Henry Blake. A photographer. A man whose name alone used to make John's jaw tighten. Henry and I had ended things peacefully before John came along, but there had always been an ease between us, a quiet familiarity. I sent a simple message, hey, it's been a while. Coffee? He replied within minutes. We met at the small cafe on 3rd Avenue, the one with the chipped blue tables and old jazz humming in the background. When I walked in, Henry smiled the same way he used to, like seeing me was both a surprise and something that made sense. We talked for hours. About everything and nothing, his new photography project, my work, how life had quietly moved on. It felt peaceful. No guilt, no manipulation, just two people talking because they wanted to. Before we left, he asked if we could take a photo, for old time's sake. We leaned close. His hand brushed my shoulder, the camera clicked. The moment was small, harmless. But the picture told another story. That night, I posted it. A simple caption beneath the photo, catching up with people who actually understand boundaries. The response came within 20 minutes. What's that supposed to mean? Are you seeing him again? You're being petty, Mia. Don't stoop that low. I read each message slowly, savoring the irony. The man who moved in with another woman was now lecturing me about respect. I didn't reply. Silence, I'd learned, could be louder than shouting. A few days later, Henry invited me to join a weekend shoot by the coast. I said yes. We spent the day on a small boat, sunlight spilling across the deck, sea spray catching in our hair. At one point, Henry snapped another photo, both of us laughing, sunglasses reflecting the endless blue. I posted that one too. That night, my phone didn't stop buzzing. 10 missed calls. Dozens of messages. Some angry, some pleading. John's words tripped over themselves, rage twisting into panic, control into desperation. For the first time, I didn't feel small. For the first time, I watched him feel what I had felt, the unease, the fear, the loss of power, and for the first time, I realized just how calm revenge could be. The call came late at night, just as I was zipping my suitcase. The screen lit up with his name, John Miller. I almost let it ring out, but curiosity won. I answered. His voice was uneven, trembling under the weight of panic he didn't know how to hide. "What are you doing, Mia? Are you trying to humiliate me?" I held the phone a few inches away, staring at the ceiling. His words barely made it through the static. For a moment, I thought about every time he'd called me irrational, every time he'd raised that calm, patronizing tone to make me question my own sanity. Then I smiled, not cruelly, just knowingly. "I thought we were being transparent, John. Isn't that what you wanted?" There was silence. Long, tight, uncomfortable. I could hear him inhale sharply, maybe trying to think of something clever to say. But nothing came. I ended the call before he could find the words. The next morning, Henry picked me up for our flight. The sun was barely rising, the city still half asleep. At the airport, he handed me a coffee and asked if I was ready. "More than ready," I said. Somewhere over the Atlantic, between sips of wine and soft laughter, Henry asked if I wanted to post a photo. I thought for a moment, then nodded. The picture was simple. Both of us seated in first class, glasses raised mid-toast, clouds stretching endlessly beyond the window. The caption read, "Flying to Italy with someone who doesn't need roommates." I hit share and put my phone face down on the tray. Hours later, as the plane cut through the sky, notifications started piling in. Friends commenting, laughing, sending hearts and fire emojis. It was the kind of chaos I didn't mind, the harmless kind that comes when the universe decides to balance the scales a little. That night, after landing in Rome, we joined a FaceTime call with a few mutual friends. Laughter, background chatter, clinking glasses, the usual noise of people who didn't know they were about to witness something unforgettable, and then John appeared in the grid of faces. His smile froze the moment he saw me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just looked straight into the camera, tone even, deliberate. "By the way, Anna texted me. Said you still owe half the rent. Guess that's what happens when your charity turns into tenancy." For a beat, no one moved. Then someone snorted. Another laughed. Soon the entire call broke into hysterics. John's face darkened, his jaw clenched. The screen blinked, call ended. Anna's accounts vanished from social media 3 days later, and just like that, the man who once thought he was the hero of this story finally learned what it felt like to be the punchline. A few weeks later, the chaos had quieted. Rome had begun to feel like a dream, the kind that didn't fade when I opened my eyes. Most evenings, I sat on the hotel balcony, a glass of wine in hand, watching the sun melt over the terracotta rooftops. The air smelled faintly of salt and basil, and the world below moved in slow, golden rhythm. I could hear the city breathing, scooters, laughter. Distant music floating from somewhere near the square. It was strange how peace could feel so full after months of emptiness. I unlocked my phone, scrolling through old photos without flinching anymore. John's name was still there in my messages, unread, persistent. 10 new texts that all said the same things in different ways. "I'm sorry. I miss you. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we talk?" For a second, I hovered over the thread. Then I put the phone down. I didn't block him. I didn't delete him either. He could keep shouting into the void he'd built himself. Instead, I opened the camera, snapped a photo of the horizon, the sun sliding behind St. Peter's Dome, the sky a soft blur of orange and violet. Then I typed out one last caption: "The best revenge isn't anger. It's indifference, served from first class." I hit post. The screen glowed for a moment, then dimmed back to reflection. My face looked different, lighter, unburdened. Not triumphant, not spiteful. Just free. Somewhere between the betrayal and the flight across the ocean, I'd realized something simple. Revenge wasn't about destroying someone else. It was about reclaiming the parts of myself I had given away too cheaply. The messages kept coming for a few more days, each one a little shorter, a little more desperate. Then they stopped. I didn't notice when they did. I only noticed the quiet, how it wasn't hollow anymore. The night breeze brushed against my hair. From the street below, a violinist played something slow and romantic. And for the first time in a long while, it didn't ache to listen. I leaned back in the chair, eyes half closed, and let the thought settle, the kind that doesn't need to be said out loud but feels like truth all the same. You don't argue with manipulators. You let them drown in the silence they created. Sometimes peace is the loudest revenge. And as the city exhaled around me, I smiled, not because I'd won, but because I no longer needed to.